The numerology of the United States. Numerology provides information into the personality of a person, event, business, or union. It gives insight into the potential and inner workings of whatever was created or formed or on that day. The numbers that create the energy of the United States are very telling and deserve a look into. So here we go. America's birthday. So on Thursday, July 4th, 1776, the final draft of the Declaration of Independence was officially adopted by the Second Continental Congress. The document was signed by 56 people, which is a master number 11 if you have the 5 plus a 6. And this document granted the 13 colonies its independence from England. 13 is also a very key number in astrology, numerology rather, as it represents karmic debt. Today we look at a few aspects of the USA's numerology, the energy of the numbers in the United States birthday, its birth chart, its karmic lessons, and karmic debt. July 4th, 1776, the energy of the numbers. So the numbers in America's birthday contained 11, 14, 16, and 37. So let's take a look at their meeting. Anything with 1 is all about how you express yourself in the physical world. Entities with 1 tend to have issues in expressing themselves and giving clear information on their inner feelings. Until that entity learns how to express itself clearly, communication will not come easy. Sometimes the opposite things will be said as an aggressive form of defense. As far as this relates to the United States and other governing bodies, things are done in secrecy and said in code, and it's up to the discerning citizen to read between the lines. 1-4. The number 4 is all about doing and practicality. It's all about being tidy, meticulous, and organized. 1-4 has the energy of doing but not practicing. It can also become impatient with unwarranted delays and procrastination. The USA is a country of doing. Its greatness was built on the backs of its many citizens to make it what it is today. To the Indians who originally inhabited the lands and taught colonizers how to navigate the terrain, the African slaves who built and tilled the lands, to the immigrants who built up several industries and mavericks who used their ingenuity to build up the empires. The U.S. is a country of doing, built by doers. 6 is all about creation and destruction. Anything created with 1-6 is all about the love of home as well. There tends to be a focus on domestic responsibility, which tends to mask the role of the 6. Creating and destroying and rebuilding is a part of America's history. Things are built, destroyed, and recreated again to give birth to something new. That happens throughout every culture throughout the world. The USA, like other countries, is very patriotic, and it prides itself on its homegrown talent, crops, inventions, and other things all American. The flip side of this patriotism can be xenophobia, which unfortunately some citizens tend to be unwelcoming of people from different cultures and upbringings. One of the more telling parts of America's numerology are the 3 sevens. So 7s are all about sacrificing or learning the hard way. The more 7s in something's birthday, the more it will experience sacrifice in their health life, love, money, or possessions. Anything created with a birth date of 3 sevens tends to live a sad life brought about by heavy loss in all three areas of life, that is health, love, or material things. This is evident in the USA's many wars, financial hardships, and the general unhealthiness of its citizens. Such loss can test the self-esteem of the nation, but can also be an opportunity to develop strength. Focusing on victimhood and looking for sympathy will keep the USA in a cycle of depression, which can drain their citizens and their allies. Up next is arrows of individuality. Arrows of individuality relates to whether there are 3 consecutive numbers in a row or 3 empty numbers in a row. It could be horizontal, straight, diagonal, but whatever. 3 numbers in a row represent strength. Arrows that highlight 3 empty spaces highlight a weakness that can be overcome by using the strength of the numbers in your chart. The U.S. has 2 arrows of individuality, 1 arrow of strength, the arrow of practicality, and the arrow of weakness, which is the arrow of hypersensitivity. So the arrow of practicality, the U.S. has this arrow because it has a 1, 4, a 4, a 1, 4, and 7 in its birth date. Entities with this arrow are the doers of the world. They tend to only be satisfied when they are involved with the practicalities of life. which makes sense. The U.S. was built on the backs of, like I said before, the natives, the slaves, the immigrants, and the underserved community. Many Mavericks have made a name for themselves by doing what had to be done in order to achieve. Entities with this arrow tend to be very clever with their hands, but need direction to use their talents wisely because they tend to do things without thinking them through. Since the US ruling number is a 5, we'll get to that later. They're materialistic. They can have materialistic tendencies that can take over their mindset. So, this can be seen in how the country operates as a capitalist society. Special care needs to be taken as to not be too materialistic, as it can make you develop a harshness and cruelty. Unfortunately, this is evident as things that should be a right, such as food, shelter, healthcare, and education, are monopolized instead of immediately granted. Next is the arrow of hypersensitivity. The middle row is the soul plane, and the U.S. does not have a 2, 5, or 8 in its birthday. Now, I'm not saying that the U.S. has no soul, but it lacks soul protection and sensitivity, which makes it vulnerable to the outside world. Part of the loss of soul protection is its attachment to the materialism and mistreatment of cultures with a high soul imprint. Entities with this arrow tend to be easily hurt, offended, or upset and can develop an inferiority complex. To protect itself, it can go in attack mode, deeply loving nature, but tendency to react lead to developing a tough outer shell. It can also prevent true self from showing, and it can grow out of victimhood. Karmic lessons and karmic debt. Karmic lessons are based on the name on your birth certificate. Whatever letter is missing from the karmic lesson matrix are the lessons you need to learn. So the name used for the USA, I use the full United States of America. On average, a person has, or an entity has 2 to 5 karmic lessons, but it's possible to have more. For the United States of America, it has 2 karmic lesson 7 and karmic lesson 8. Anything with a lesson of karmic 7 is not able to handle its own emotions, does not possess the ability to master a talent, and it needs to learn to be their own critic without condemning itself. It also possesses a surface level of understanding, which will prevent it from learning their potential. Karmic lesson 8, entities with these lessons are very independent and self regulating. They resist authority and do not like being micromanaged. They tend to focus on money and status and let their relationships fall to the wayside. They also need to learn how to manage their money. This lesson teaches them to learn boundaries, and they also need to learn how to be well organized. Moving on to karmic debts, they hold more of a punch than karmic lessons. Basically, the karmic debt number indicates that you have a debt to pay in this lifetime for actions you performed in a former one. When you see one of these numbers show up in one of the core numbers in your chart, it's a message that you're working with issues from the past. The US has a karmic debt number of 14, and it gets broken down like this. So there's the 7 and the 4, and those are single numbers. But the 1776 gets broken down to the 21. And then from there, in numerology, you have to break everything down by one single number. You take the 2 plus the 1, you get the 3. So when you add the 7 and the 4, that's 11. 11 plus 3 equals 14. You get the karmic debt number of 14. And if you add those two together, we get their ruling number of 5. So the karmic debt number of 14 arises from previous lifetimes during which human freedom has been abused. You were likely a prisoner or slave in a previous lifetime, and you are now forced to adapt to ever-changing circumstances and unexpected events. With this karmic debt, you have to be flexible. You have the potential of becoming a slave to your own freedom through the abuse of drugs or alcohol and overindulgences in food and sex. The key to the 14 karmic debt is commitment. Life will resemble a roller coaster ride, but it will always travel in the right direction if you stay focused on your goals. So not only was the United States founded by people escaping persecution, religious persecution, but it was founded on slavery. From human slavery to the systemic slavery that governs the non-elites in our modern day world today. We're financially enslaved, educationally enslaved. There's a lot of systems keeping us in place. So part of what keeps the wheel turning is having its citizens in some sort of addictive, unescapable cycle. Part of what's going on in 2020 is allowing the U.S. and other nations to live in a world that is prosperous in all aspects of life. A world where prosperity and accessibility to everyone and no one is lacking their basic needs. This type of world can exist. It is not a pipe dream, but however, it will take a lot of re-education, destruction, and ultimately creation to get this into place.